Stop provoking her, Mom. My son Daniel shouted from the other side of the door as I banged against it with all the strength my trembling hands could gather. I was trapped inside my own bedroom. Again, moments earlier, I had realized that my house keys were gone. Not misplaced. Gone, deliberately taken. Daniel's footsteps echoed away down the hallway as he yelled one last warning. I'm leaving for work. Don't cause any trouble while I'm gone. And with that, the sound of the front door closing sealed my fate for the day. I stood there in silence, staring at the handle. My heart thudding as the truth sank in. I was a prisoner in my own home. I'm Clara. I'm 66 years old. And until recently, I believed that family was the safest place in the world. I spent 40 years working as a nurse, saving every penny to buy this little apartment, the same one where I raised Daniel after his father's sudden passing. We built a quiet, peaceful life. Or so I thought. Everything changed 2 years ago, when she came into our lives. At first, Isabelle seemed like the perfect daughter-in-law, kind, sophisticated, always polite. She met Daniel at a hospital fundraiser, and within 6 months they were married. When they lost their apartment after Daniel was laid off, I welcomed them into my home without hesitation. Clara, you're an angel, Isabelle would say, giving me one of her practiced hugs. I don't know how to repay you. If only I had known how false that gratitude really was. The first months were calm enough. But slowly, her mask began to slip. It started with small, cutting remarks disguised as innocent observations. Oh, Clara, you cook with too much salt, she'd say, wrinkling her nose. Or, you still keep these old curtains? They make the room feel so dated. Every word felt like a little splinter under my skin. And Daniel, who used to defend me fiercely, began to change too. Isabelle had a way of speaking softly, privately, when she thought I couldn't hear. She's getting forgetful, Daniel, I once overheard her whisper. We should handle more things ourselves. You know? For her own good. For her own good. Those words became her favorite weapon, the excuse behind every invasion into my life. Soon Isabelle was reorganizing my kitchen, helping pay my bills, and managing my finances. She convinced Daniel that I might make mistakes with numbers at my age. Mom, Daniel said one evening, his voice lined with irritation. Isabelle studied accounting. It just makes sense that she handles the money. My son, my sweet boy who once trusted me more than anyone, now spoke to me as though I were a child. Then Isabelle began screening my phone calls. Friends and family were told I was too tired to talk or not feeling well. Invitations vanished before I ever saw them. I realized too late that I was being isolated, one little lie at a time. When my sister called one afternoon, I heard Isabelle answer, "Oh, Clara's resting right now. She's been confused lately, poor thing." Confused. That word echoed through me like a curse. At the grocery store, Isabelle followed close behind, removing items from my cart with that same sickly smile. You don't need that brand, Clara. It's too expensive. Let's be practical. My world, once warm and full of life, was shrinking, walls closing in with each passing day. I tried to tell Daniel what was happening, but he only frowned and told me I was overreacting. It was then I realized something terrible. Isabelle wasn't just unkind or controlling. She was planning something far more sinister, and the morning I found my keys missing, locked behind that door, was only the beginning of her plan. That day, as I stood staring at the locked door, I didn't know that Isabelle's cruelty was about to cross a line, one that would leave bruises not only on my skin, but on my soul. It happened on a Tuesday morning, a day I'll never forget. The first time Isabelle's cruelty turned physical. I was in the kitchen, humming softly as I brewed coffee, when she stormed in like a thundercloud. Her hair was unkempt, her eyes red with rage. "You useless old woman," she shouted, slamming her hand on the counter. I froze, the spoon slipping from my grasp. "Isabelle, what?" Before I could finish, she shoved me so hard that I stumbled backward into the table. The steaming cup tipped over, spilling hot coffee across my hand. Pain seared through my skin, but it was the humiliation that burned worse. "You do everything wrong," she hissed. "You can't even make breakfast properly. This house is disgusting because of you." For a long moment, I just stood there, clutching my wrist under the cold tap, trembling, not from the burn, but from disbelief. This wasn't frustration. This was hatred. When Daniel came home that evening, I rushed to him, my heart pounding with desperate hope. "Daniel, she hurt me," I said, showing him the angry red burn on my hand. "She pushed me, she lost control." He didn't even look closely. He sighed, rubbing his forehead. "Mom, please," he said quietly. "Isabelle told me what happened. She said you provoked her first." "Provoked her?" I repeated, stunned. I didn't even say a word. "Mom, you've been confused lately," he interrupted, his tone heavy with that same weary pity that had become so familiar. "You might have misunderstood." His words shattered something inside me. For the first time in my life, I realized my son didn't believe me. From that day on, things only got worse. Isabelle seemed to know that Daniel's trust in her was absolute, and with that power came open cruelty. Once, she yanked my arm so hard that purple bruises bloomed across my skin. Another time, she kicked my cane aside when I reached for it, sneering, "You move too slow, Clara. You're holding everyone back." After every incident, she leaned close to whisper, "If you tell Daniel, I'll make it worse. He already thinks you're losing your mind." And terrifyingly, I knew she was right. She had begun planting small traps, misplacing things, moving objects, then pretending to find them later to prove I was forgetful. One afternoon, she called Daniel into the kitchen. "Look, darling," she said sweetly, opening the refrigerator. "Your mom put her keys in here. I think her memory's getting worse." Of course, I had never put them there. But when Daniel saw them, he just sighed. "Mom, you really need to rest more," he said gently, as if I were a fragile child. It was the perfect setup. Small deceptions that painted me as unstable. The grocery store, Isabelle continued the charade. "Clara, don't you remember? We already bought milk yesterday," she'd say loudly enough for others to hear. Her tone was always drenched in fake concern. And strangers would look at her with sympathy, the kind of sympathy reserved for people caring for ailing relatives. My voice would tremble as I tried to defend myself. But she'd only pat my arm and say, "It's all right, dear. Everyone forgets sometimes." Each time, I felt my dignity crumble a little more. Then came the money. Isabelle convinced Daniel that it was safer if she handled my bills directly. "Just a precaution," she said, flashing that smile that fooled everyone but me. At first, it seemed harmless. Then I noticed small withdrawals from my savings, 50 here, 100 there. When I confronted her, she laughed. "You probably forgot you spent it," she said smoothly. "See why it's better if I manage things?" When I tried to tell Daniel, he only shook his head. "Mom, Isabelle told me you've been worrying about money lately. It's normal at your age." I wanted to scream, to shake him, to make him see. But he was already lost to her spell. That night, lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling and realized the truth that made my stomach twist with dread. Isabelle didn't just want control. She wanted everything, and she was slowly taking it, piece by piece. But I didn't yet understand how far Isabelle would go to get what she wanted, until the night I discovered someone rifling through my bedroom drawers, searching for something I didn't even know was missing. The day I realized Isabelle's plan was deeper than I'd ever imagined began like any other, quiet, gray, and heavy with the feeling that something was wrong. For weeks, I had felt eyes on me even when I was alone. Isabelle had taken over every part of my life, my kitchen, my finances, even my privacy. But that morning, her control crossed an invisible line. I was folding laundry in my bedroom when I heard the faint creak of the door behind me. I turned, and froze. There, half crouched beside my nightstand, was a woman I had never seen before. She jumped when our eyes met. "Oh, sorry, Mrs. Clara," she said, straightening quickly. "Isabelle asked me to grab some headache medicine from your drawer." My stomach dropped. "Excuse me?" Her tone was breezy, but her fingers trembled as she shut the drawer. "It's nothing serious," she said quickly, brushing past me toward the hallway. "Just helping out." But the moment she was gone, I rushed to the nightstand and pulled the drawer open. My heart nearly stopped. The envelope that held the deed to my apartment, the home I'd bought with a lifetime of sacrifice, was missing. When Isabelle came home that evening, I confronted her. "Where are my property papers?" I demanded, my voice shaking. Her eyes narrowed, but her expression stayed cool. "Clara, what are you talking about? Don't lie to me. That woman you sent, she was in my room." "Are you serious?" Isabelle crossed her arms and let out a short, mocking laugh. "You really need to stop imagining things. No one was in your room. Maybe you misplaced your papers like you misplaced your keys last week." Her tone was sharp, but her eyes, those cold, calculating eyes, told me she knew exactly what she'd done. When Daniel came home, I begged him to listen. "Your wife is lying," I said desperately. "She's trying to take my home." He sighed and rubbed his temples, the same gesture he used whenever he thought I was being irrational. "Mom, you're not making sense," he said tiredly. "Why would Isabelle want to steal from you? She loves you." "No," I said firmly. "She loves my house." He flinched but didn't answer. That silence was worse than words. After that night, Isabelle's hostility became bolder. She began inviting her friends over without asking, loud, arrogant women who treated my living room like a cafe. They'd drink wine, leave ashes in the flower pots, and laugh when I asked them to quiet down. "It's good for you, Clara," Isabelle said sweetly. "You need company. You're too isolated." But I wasn't being included. I was being erased. My own home no longer felt like mine. Then came the whispers. One afternoon, as I passed the living room, I overheard Isabelle speaking to one of her friends in a hushed tone. "This place has appreciated a lot in value," she said. "If I were in charge, I'd sell it tomorrow." Her friend laughed. "Can you even do that?" Oh, I have my ways, Isabelle replied. Her words made my skin crawl. Later that night, I locked my bedroom door for the first time. I sat on my bed, the weight of decades pressing down on me, and realized I was losing everything, not through force, but through manipulation so clever it looked like care. I wanted to believe that Daniel would wake up to the truth, that he would see the woman he married for what she really was. But Isabelle had built her story too carefully. Every time I resisted, she twisted my actions into evidence of my supposed confusion, and the more I tried to defend myself, the more unhinged I appeared. Still, I couldn't ignore what I'd seen, the stranger in my room. The missing deed, Isabelle's growing confidence. Something sinister was happening right under my roof. I promised myself that night I would find proof before it was too late, but I didn't know then that the proof would come to me, in the most horrifying way imaginable. A few days later, as I pretended to nap, I overheard Isabelle on the phone, and the words that came out of her mouth made my blood run cold. She wasn't just stealing from me. She was planning to have me locked away. It was a Friday afternoon, gray and windless, the kind of day that feels like it's holding its breath before a storm. I was in my bedroom pretending to nap when I heard Isabelle's voice drift through the half-closed door. Her tone was low and deliberate. The way people sound when they know what they're doing is wrong. Yes, doctor, she said softly. I understand. The evaluation has to appear authentic. Don't worry, she's showing all the signs already. My heart stopped. I held my breath and pressed closer to the crack in the door. She forgets things constantly, Isabelle continued. She accuses me of stealing from her, hides objects, talks to herself. Yesterday she even tried to hit me with her husband's cane. I nearly gasped out loud. That was a lie. I had never even touched the cane that rested in the corner of my closet. How long does the commitment process take? She asked. A pause, and then, with a satisfied hum, perfect. The sooner, the better. The situation here is dangerous for everyone. Her words sliced through me like cold metal. She wasn't just trying to humiliate me anymore, she wanted me gone. My body trembled as she went on, her voice calm, professional, rehearsed. Once she's declared incompetent, we'll have to sell the apartment to cover the medical costs. My husband agrees it's for the best. Sell the apartment. My apartment, the one I bought after 20 years of double shifts. The one where Daniel had taken his first steps, and now she was plotting to sell it as if it were a used piece of furniture. When she finally hung up, I lay frozen. The reality pounding inside my skull. Isabelle was planning to have me committed, declared mentally unfit, and to use that diagnosis to take everything I owned. That night, she put on her usual mask of sweetness. She cooked dinner, smiled across the table, and even poured me tea as though nothing had happened. But her eyes glimmered with triumph every time she looked at me. When Daniel got home, she performed her next act flawlessly. Sweetheart, she said in a voice full of trembling sorrow, your mom had another episode today. She screamed at me, said terrible things, and when I tried to calm her, she tried to hit me. I stood up from my chair. That's not true. I cried. She's lying. Daniel turned to me, confusion and exhaustion in his eyes. Mom, please, just sit down. Isabelle told me what happened. Daniel, listen to me, I begged. She's planning to have me committed. She talked to a doctor today, a man named Smith. She wants to sell the house. But the moment the words left my mouth, I saw the flicker in his eyes. Pity. Not belief. Mom, he said gently, as if speaking to a child, you've been under so much stress lately. Maybe it's better if a doctor checks on you, just to be safe. That was when I knew I had lost him completely. Over the next few days, Isabelle cut off my contact with the outside world. My sister's calls were missed or accidentally disconnected. My bedroom phone line suddenly went dead. When I asked why, Isabelle smiled faintly. We canceled the service, she said. You don't need it. It's outdated. Each lie was delivered so smoothly it almost sounded like concern, and then, 3 days after the phone call, I discovered something that made my blood run cold. While Isabelle was in the shower, she'd left her purse on the dining table. My hand shook as I opened it. Inside was a thick folder labeled with my name. Inside the folder, medical forms with blank signatures. Evaluations dated in the future, and, worst of all, a power of attorney giving Isabelle full control over my assets. My apartment deed was there too, folded neatly beside a list of potential selling prices. There were also photographs, grainy, invasive images of me, taken without my knowledge. Me crying in my room. Me looking through drawers. Me talking to myself in the kitchen. Evidence. Fabricated evidence. I barely had time to close the folder before I heard her voice behind me. What are you doing? She stood there, dripping from the shower, wrapped in a towel, her eyes blazing with fury. Going through my things. Clara? She said, stepping closer. That's exactly the kind of behavior the doctor needs to see. My voice shook. You're planning to commit me. She smiled, cruel and calm. I'm planning to save you from yourself. That night, as I lay awake, Isabelle's words echoed in my mind, "Save you from yourself." I didn't know it yet, but the real battle for my freedom had already begun. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay on my bed with my eyes open, staring at the ceiling, the echo of Isabelle's words clawing at my thoughts. "I'm planning to save you from yourself." Save me? No, she was planning to erase me. The next morning, I woke to the sound of her humming in the kitchen, cheerful and light, as though the argument had never happened. When she entered my room with a tray of breakfast, her mask of politeness was back in place. "Good morning, Clara," she said sweetly. "I made oatmeal. The doctor says it's good for people your age." Her tone was syrupy, but her eyes gleamed with quiet victory. "Which doctor?" I asked coldly. "Oh, you'll meet him soon," she replied with a smile that made my stomach twist. "He's coming on Tuesday to evaluate you." "Evaluate me?" "Yes," Isabelle said matter-of-factly. "Daniel and I have agreed it's time for a professional to assess your condition. We can't keep pretending nothing's wrong." My pulse quickened. Tuesday. That gave me only 3 days to stop her. After she left, I tried to think rationally. I needed proof, something that couldn't be twisted or denied. I searched my room for the hidden folder again, but it was gone. Isabelle must have moved it. When Daniel came home that evening, I tried once more to reach him. "Son, please listen to me," I said, clutching his hands. "She's planning to have me declared insane. She has forged papers, photos, everything." He looked at me the way someone looks at a patient they love but can't help. "Mom, you need to stop with these accusations. Isabelle told me you found her purse yesterday. You can't invade someone's privacy like that. It's not normal." "Not normal?" I said bitterly. "Do you even hear yourself?" "She's stealing from me, lying to you," he interrupted gently. "Mom, you're just tired. Let's wait for the doctor's opinion, okay? After that, we'll decide what's best." I could have screamed. He meant well, but he was blind. She had wrapped him so tightly in her lies that even my truth sounded like madness. When I returned to my room that night, I locked the door and sat in the dark, listening to the muffled laughter of Daniel and Isabelle from the living room. It wasn't just laughter, it was a victory song. The next morning, the situation worsened. I picked up the phone to call my sister, but there was no dial tone. Isabelle had disconnected the line entirely. When I confronted her, she feigned surprise. "Oh, I forgot to mention," she said casually, stirring sugar into her tea. "We canceled the landline. Nobody uses those anymore. It's just a waste of money." "You canceled my phone?" I snapped. "Our phone," she corrected smoothly. "You live here too, remember?" It took every ounce of strength not to strike her. She wanted me to lose control, to give her exactly what she needed to prove I was unstable. I spent the rest of that day searching for another way out. I tried the apartment door, but my keys were still missing. She had hidden them weeks ago. Even the balcony was locked from the outside. Isabelle had built herself a perfect little prison, elegant, invisible, and utterly inescapable. Then, as if to torment me further, she began acting unusually kind. She made me tea in the evenings, played soft music, and talked about how much she worried for my health. It was all performance, the gentle tone, the hand on my shoulder, the subtle rehearsed sighs. She was preparing for the doctor's visit, rehearsing her role as the devoted caregiver. That night, while washing dishes, she said something that made my blood run cold. "You know, Clara," she murmured, her back to me, "sometimes it's best to let other people make decisions when we're not thinking clearly. It saves everyone a lot of trouble." I said nothing. But inside, something in me hardened. She thought I was helpless, but she was wrong. If she was planning to have me committed, then I would find a way to expose her lies before the doctor arrived. And no matter what it took. But the following day, Isabelle brought someone new into my home, a stranger whose arrival confirmed that my time was running out, and that the final stage of her plan was already in motion. Part 6. The next day began with an unusual silence. Isabelle was dressed earlier than usual, her hair perfectly brushed, her lips painted in that confident shade of crimson she wore when she had something planned out. I watched her from the doorway as she adjusted her earrings and checked her reflection in the hallway mirror. "Expecting someone?" I asked. She turned, her smile too wide. "Oh, just a little visit from a friend. Someone who can help us with the next steps." "Next steps?" I repeated, my stomach tightening, but she didn't answer. Instead, she poured herself another cup of coffee and began humming. That sound, light and careless, always meant danger. Around noon, the doorbell rang. Isabelle rushed to answer, and when she opened the door, a woman stepped inside. She was young, blonde, expensively dressed, the kind of person who carried herself like she owned the world. "Marina," Isabelle exclaimed, embracing her warmly. "I'm so glad you could come." The name sent a chill through me. I had never heard of her before. They moved into the living room, talking in hushed tones. I stood in the kitchen, pretending to tidy the counter while trying to listen. Everything's ready for Tuesday, the stranger said softly. Dr. Adams already signed the preliminary forms. Once the evaluation is done, the commitment can be processed within 24 hours. My heart skipped a beat. Tuesday. That was the day Isabelle had mentioned, the day my life would end as I knew it. Perfect, Isabelle replied, her tone full of satisfaction. And what about the apartment? Did you talk to the agent? The other woman nodded. He's ready. The property value's between 90 and 100,000. There are buyers lined up, cash deals only. You'll have no problem closing fast once the paperwork clears. I felt my knees weaken. They were talking about my home like it was merchandise. My mind raced. Who was this woman? A lawyer? A realtor? An accomplice? Whatever she was helping Isabelle execute the final step of her plan, to get me out in cash. I moved closer. Hiding just behind the kitchen wall. I still can't believe how smoothly everything is going, Isabelle said. Daniel won't question a thing once the doctor confirms her condition. He's completely convinced. Marina smirked. He's your husband. He's supposed to be convinced. They both laughed. That sound, sharp, cruel, conspiratorial, hit me like a knife to the chest. I gripped the countertop to steady myself. When I finally stepped into the living room, my hands were trembling, but my voice came out steady. Who is this woman? I demanded. And what are you talking about? Both turned toward me. Isabelle's face hardened instantly. Clara, please, don't start. I heard everything, I snapped. You're trying to sell my apartment. Marina gave a polite, almost mocking smile. I think there's been some misunderstanding. I'm just Isabelle's cousin, a real estate agent. She asked me to look at the market value of the building, that's all. Liar, I said through clenched teeth. You're helping her steal my home. Do you see what I mean? Isabelle said to Marina, her voice full of false pity. The paranoia gets worse every day. I could feel my face burning. Stop calling me paranoid. But my outburst only seemed to please her. She tilted her head and gave me a sweet, patient smile. You should rest, Clara. Stress isn't good for you. Why don't you take a nap? I'm not tired, I hissed. Then maybe a little quiet time in your room, she said, her voice turning cold. We don't want any incidents before the doctor's visit, do we? The way she said incidents made me shiver. For the rest of that day, I sat in my bedroom, my thoughts spiraling. Isabelle's plan was airtight, a trap made of paperwork, manipulation, and lies. Daniel was blind, the doctor was in her pocket, and now she had help from outside. If I didn't act soon, by Tuesday I'd be locked behind walls I'd never escape. But what could I do? My phone was gone, my keys hidden, and my only ally, my sister, thought I was unwell because of Isabelle's lies. I was alone. Completely alone. Still, as night fell, one thought kept repeating in my head like a whisper, if Isabelle can plan, so can I. And I would, because I wasn't going to let her win. The next morning, as I searched for a way to escape, Isabelle made one small mistake, a single careless move that would finally give me a weapon to fight back. Morning sunlight spilled through the blinds in thin, trembling lines. For a moment, I almost believed the night had washed everything clean. But as soon as I heard Isabelle's voice drifting from the kitchen, that illusion shattered. She was humming again, always humming when she was up to something. I sat up slowly, my heart pounding as I replayed the previous day in my mind, the stranger, the conversation, the casual talk of selling my home. Every word felt like a knife twisting deeper. I had to act, but how? I had no phone, no keys, and no one who believed me. Isabelle had built a cage around me, invisible, silent, airtight, but even the smartest predator can make a mistake. That morning, she left her purse on the dining table again. Maybe she thought I was too broken to try anything. Maybe she wanted to taunt me. Either way, this was my chance. I waited until she went into the bathroom, the sound of running water covering my footsteps. My pulse drummed in my ears as I opened the purse. Inside, among the familiar chaos of cosmetics and receipts, was her phone. I froze. My hands shook as I unlocked it, the same passcode she'd used for months, Daniel's birthday. She never imagined I'd remember. I scrolled quickly, my eyes darting through her recent calls. There it was, Dr. Adams. Dozens of calls, the most recent just the night before. And below that, Marina, agent, Realty Express, Bank of Merton, every piece of her plan. Right there in her contact list. Then, at the top of her messages, one conversation caught my attention, a thread titled Property Documents. My breath hitched as I opened it. There were scanned copies of my apartment deed, bank statements, and even a draft of the power of attorney with my forged signature. She'd sent them to Marina 2 nights ago. It was the proof I needed, undeniable evidence that she was stealing everything I owned. I snapped photos of the screen with her phone and quickly emailed them to my old hospital account, one she didn't know existed. My hands trembled so violently that I almost dropped the device. The sound of water stopped. I shoved the phone back into her purse and returned to my room. My chest tight with panic, for the first time in months. I felt something stronger than fear, hope, but that hope didn't last long. Later that afternoon, Daniel came home earlier than usual. His face was tense, his eyes darting between me and Isabelle. "What's going on?" I asked carefully. He sighed. "Mom, Isabelle told me you've been going through her personal things again. She said you took her phone." My stomach sank. Isabelle stood behind him, her arms folded, her face the perfect mask of concern. "Daniel, she's lying," I said quickly. "I didn't, Mom," he interrupted. "You can't keep doing this. It's not healthy. We're just trying to help you." I looked from his face to hers, realizing what she'd done. She'd planted the accusation before I could use the evidence. She'd already rewritten the story in her favor. "Daniel," I pleaded, "she's trying to take my apartment. She has the papers, enough." He snapped, louder than I'd ever heard him. "You're making this impossible." The room fell silent. Isabelle touched his arm gently, pretending to calm him. "It's all right, dear," she murmured. "She's just having another episode." Episode. That word echoed through me like thunder. She had turned my every attempt to defend myself into proof of madness. After Daniel left the room, Isabelle turned to me, her voice low and venomous. "You really thought you could outsmart me?" she whispered. "You don't even realize how far ahead I am. The doctor's coming tomorrow. And when he does, you'll be gone, for good." Then she smiled, that cold, confident smile I'd come to fear. I waited until she went to bed, then opened my window slightly to let in the night air. I needed to think, to breathe, to find another way out. Somewhere deep inside, beneath all the fear, a spark of determination flickered to life. Isabelle thought she'd won, but she didn't know that I had one final move left. The next morning, as rain tapped against the windows, I realized it was now or never. If I couldn't stop the doctor from declaring me insane, I'd have to find someone who could, even if it meant risking everything. The next morning arrived wrapped in rain and tension. The apartment felt colder than usual, as though even the walls could sense what was coming. The rhythmic tapping of water against the windows reminded me of time slipping away. Tomorrow, the doctor would arrive. Tomorrow, Isabelle's plan would be complete. I stood at my window, staring at the city below, people walking freely, cars passing by. The faint smell of wet pavement drifting in through the crack I'd left open the night before. How strange it felt to be trapped in the same home I had once filled with laughter. I had less than 24 hours to stop her. As I paced the room, ideas came and went like flashes of lightning, wild, desperate, impossible. Isabelle had cut every line of communication. No phone, no internet, no way out. But she wasn't perfect. She had become too confident. Too comfortable in her control. Confidence makes people careless. I remembered the proof I'd emailed to my old hospital account, the photos of her messages, the forged signatures. That account was linked to an old colleague, Dr. Emily Rhodes, who still worked at St. Mary's. If I could reach her somehow, she might help me. But first, I needed a way to send a message. When Isabelle left for groceries that afternoon, I seized the chance. I went straight to Daniel's study. She usually avoided this room, too dull for her tastes, and I hoped she hadn't thought to monitor it. I searched frantically through the desk drawers until I found an old laptop. The screen flickered to life, slow but functional. My pulse raced. Maybe, just maybe, this could save me. The Wi-Fi connection was locked, but I remembered something: Isabelle's password habits. She used Daniel's birthday for everything. I typed it in, the connection icon blinked green, hands trembling. I opened the email app and typed as fast as my fingers could manage. Subject: urgent, please help Emily, it's Clara. I'm in danger. Isabelle is trying to have me declared mentally unfit. I've attached proof from her phone, forged documents, real estate plans, and fake evaluations. Please don't reply here. Contact the police or come to my address immediately. I hit send. The message whooshed away into the digital void, and for a moment, relief flooded me like air after drowning. Then I heard footsteps. My heart lurched. I slammed the laptop shut just as Isabelle's voice echoed down the hall. "Clara? What are you doing in there?" I forced calm into my tone. "Just looking for an old photo album." The doorknob turned. She appeared in the doorway, her face tight with suspicion, her eyes darting to the desk. "You shouldn't be in here," she said coldly. "Daniel doesn't like people touching his things." I was reminiscing, I said quietly. She stared at me for a long, tense moment, then smiled. "Well, try not to tire yourself. Big day tomorrow." After she left, I sank into the chair, my heart still hammering. The message was sent, but had it reached Emily in time? That night, Isabelle cooked dinner as if it were any other evening. She laughed, poured Daniel a glass of wine, and pretended to be the perfect wife. I stayed silent, barely eating, every muscle in my body coiled tight. When Daniel went to bed, Isabelle lingered in the kitchen, cleaning dishes that didn't need cleaning. Then she turned to me with that falsely sympathetic smile. "You look nervous, Clara." Don't be. Tomorrow will make everything better. You'll get the help you need. I wanted to tell her that her game was over, that I'd already sent proof, that her lies were about to crumble. But I said nothing. Let her sleep soundly one last night before the storm hit. Later, as I lay in bed listening to the rain, I thought of Emily, of the kind smile she used to give her patients, of the promise she once made to me years ago, if you ever need me, Clara, I'll be there. I clung to that memory like a lifeline, but hope can be fragile, and sometimes, it arrives too late. The next morning, just hours before the doctor was due to arrive, there was a knock at the door. For a heartbeat, I thought it might be Emily. But when Isabelle opened it, the person standing there wasn't my friend, it was someone far worse.
I was sitting on the edge of my bed when the knock came. 3 sharp raps, precise, deliberate, and far too early. My heart stuttered. Isabelle had said the doctor would arrive at noon, but the clock on my wall read barely 10. From the hallway, I heard Isabelle's voice, soft, polite, falsely welcoming. "Good morning, doctor. You're early, but that's all right. We've been expecting you." My stomach dropped. He's here. I crept to the doorway and peered through the narrow crack. A tall man stood in the entryway, wearing a dark coat and carrying a black leather bag. His expression was unreadable, clinical, detached. He looked like a man who had already decided what he'd find. "Where is Mrs. Harper?" he asked. "Resting in her room," Isabelle replied smoothly. "She's been more agitated than usual lately. I'm worried she might hurt herself." I bit my lip to keep from shouting. The lies flowed so easily from her tongue it almost sounded like truth. When the doctor stepped into the living room, I backed away from the door, trying to calm my shaking hands. I couldn't let him see me frantic. That was exactly what Isabelle wanted. For me to look unhinged. Moments later, she knocked on my door. "Clara," she said sweetly, "the doctor's here. He just wants to talk, all right?" I drew in a steadying breath before opening it. The man gave a polite nod. "Good morning, Mrs. Harper. I'm Dr. Adams. I've been asked to perform a brief cognitive and behavioral assessment today." I looked him straight in the eyes. "Against my will?" He hesitated, just for a second, then said, "Your family expressed concern for your well-being." "My family," I said, glancing toward Isabelle, "means her." The doctor gestured toward the sofa. "Why don't we sit down?" I took my seat slowly, hands clasped in my lap. Isabelle lingered near the doorway, pretending to give us space but clearly listening to every word. Dr. Adams began his questions. Simple ones at first. My name, the date, where I was. I answered each clearly, deliberately. But as the test went on, I noticed the faint smirk curling Isabelle's lips every time I hesitated. Then came the questions that mattered. "Do you often feel that others are trying to harm you?" I froze. It was a trap. If I said yes, I'd sound paranoid. If I said no, I'd lose the chance to expose her. Finally, I said carefully, "I don't feel it. I know it. The woman you're standing beside has been manipulating me, stealing from me, and planning to have me committed." Dr. Adams wrote something on his clipboard, expression unreadable. Isabelle's smirk deepened. "Can you prove these allegations?" he asked. "Yes," I said quickly. "Check her phone. Check the emails. She forged my signature. Clara," Isabelle interrupted softly, placing a hand on my shoulder. "Please stop. You're upsetting yourself." "Don't touch me," I snapped, jerking away. The doctor frowned, scribbling something down. I could feel the situation slipping through my fingers. Every truthful word I spoke only made me look more unstable. After another 15 minutes, the evaluation ended. Dr. Adams thanked me politely and stepped into the hallway with Isabelle. Their murmured voices mixed with the sound of my racing heartbeat. When they returned, Isabelle wore the kind of smile that told me everything. "Dr. Adams agrees you may need observation in a safe environment," she said sweetly, "just for a short while until things settle down." My vision blurred. "You can't do this. You don't have the right." "Oh, I do," she said quietly. "You signed the forms, remember?" I stared at her, horrified, until I realized she was referring to the forged papers. Dr. Adams cleared his throat. "I'll file the preliminary report today. Mrs. Harper will remain under supervision until transport is arranged." And then he was gone, leaving me with the woman who had just stolen my freedom. Isabelle turned to me, her eyes glittering. "Don't look so shocked, Clara. This is for your own good. You'll thank me one day." I wanted to scream, to break something, to make the walls hear my truth. But instead, I sat frozen, every ounce of strength focused on one thought. This wasn't over. She might have won today, but I still had one card she didn't know about. The email to Emily. And if Emily had read it, help could already be on its way. That night, as Isabelle celebrated her victory, I heard a sound outside. Faint at first, then growing clearer. Someone was knocking again, but this time it wasn't the doctor. That night stretched longer than any I'd ever lived. I sat in the dark, listening to the creaks of the old apartment and the faint hum of the refrigerator, every sound amplified by fear. Isabelle had gone to bed after her victory glass of wine, humming softly as she disappeared into her room, but I didn't close my eyes once. My mind replayed every moment of that day. The doctor's cold expression, Daniel's silence, Isabelle's smug satisfaction. It all felt too perfect, too practiced. She had choreographed the entire performance, and I had played my role exactly as she wanted. Except for one thing, the email. That was my last hope. Hours passed. The clock struck midnight, then 1, then 2. I sat by the window, wrapped in a blanket, staring out into the rain. Streetlights glowed through the mist like dying stars, and then I heard it. 3 faint knocks. I froze. For a moment, I thought I'd imagined it. But then it came again, louder this time, echoing through the hall. Someone was at the door. My breath caught in my throat. Isabelle stirred in her room. I could hear the rustle of sheets. "Who on earth?" she muttered, her footsteps approaching. I crept to my bedroom door and pressed my ear to the wood. The knock came. Again. This time a voice followed. "Mrs. Harper, it's Emily Rhodes. I'm here to see you." Relief surged through me so suddenly that my knees nearly gave out. Emily! She'd read my message. She'd come. Isabelle opened the door, just a crack. "It's late," she said sharply. "Who are you?" "I'm Dr. Rhodes," Emily replied calmly. "I received an email from Mrs. Harper regarding some medical concerns. I thought I'd stop by." I heard Isabelle's tone change instantly, polite, but wary. "I'm afraid she's resting. You'll have to come back." "I'm her physician of record," Emily said, voice firm. "Under the law, I'm permitted to check on her welfare. May I come in?" There was a pause. Long, brittle, suffocating. Then the sound of the door opening wider. I stepped into the hallway just as Emily entered. Her eyes found mine immediately. Warm, steady, full of quiet understanding. "Clara," she said softly, "it's good to see you again." Before I could speak, Isabelle interjected. "Doctor, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Clara has been—" Emily held up a hand. "I'd like to speak with her privately." Isabelle's jaw tightened. "That's not possible." "It's not a request," Emily said coolly. For the first time since Isabelle had moved in, I saw her falter. Just slightly, but it was enough. Emily guided me toward the living room, her presence like an anchor in a storm. "You're safe," she whispered. "I got your message, I brought copies of your email, and I've contacted a legal advocate. They're on standby." Tears welled in my eyes. "She's going to have me committed, Emily. She forged my signature, took my money." "I know," she said gently. "We'll fix this, but you have to stay calm." Behind us, Isabelle paced like a caged animal. Her voice was brittle when she spoke. "Doctor, with all due respect, Clara's condition is fragile. You shouldn't upset her." Emily turned to face her, her tone sharp as glass. "The only one upsetting her is you, Mrs. Sinclair. Or should I say, the woman who's been impersonating her caregiver while transferring her assets." Isabelle's face drained of color. "What are you talking about?" Emily reached into her bag and pulled out a printed page. A copy of the forged power of attorney. "This came from your email," she said calmly. "I have proof you sent it, and before I arrived, I forwarded everything to the police." For the first time, Isabelle's composure cracked. Her lips parted, but no sound came. Daniel appeared in the hallway, still half asleep, rubbing his eyes. "What's going on?" he mumbled. Emily's tone softened. "Daniel, I think you should sit down." But Isabelle wasn't done. "You can't prove anything," she spat, her voice trembling now. "She's delusional. She made this up." "She sent me your messages, Isabelle," Emily said, quietly. "All of them." The silence that followed was heavy, the kind that comes just before everything falls apart. I watched Isabelle's mask finally crumble, and for the first time in months, I felt air fill my lungs again, but Isabelle wasn't the kind of woman to go down quietly. And as the sound of sirens grew closer, I realized the nightmare wasn't over yet. It was only shifting into its final act. The sirens grew louder, cutting through the night air like a promise. Red and blue light flickered across the rain-damp walls of the apartment, painting everything in restless color. Isabelle stood frozen in the middle of the living room, her mask of composure cracking at last. For months she had been untouchable, her lies smooth and effortless. But now, as flashing lights reflected in her eyes, I saw fear. Real, raw fear. Emily stayed close beside me, one hand steady on my shoulder. Her voice was calm but firm. "They're almost here, Clara. Just breathe." The doorbell rang a final time, sharp and urgent. Isabelle jolted. Daniel, pale and confused, opened the door. Two uniformed officers stepped inside, rain dripping from their coats. "Good evening," one said. "We received a report of suspected financial fraud and elder abuse." Emily handed over the printed evidence. Isabelle's emails, the forged documents, the fake evaluations. The officers scanned the pages quickly, their expressions turning hard. "Mrs. Sinclair," one said, "we'll need you to come with us." This is absurd," Isabelle sputtered. "She's lying. I'm her caregiver." Emily's tone stayed icy. "You're her thief." Isabelle's eyes darted wildly, searching for an escape. "Daniel," she cried, tell them I was helping your mother." But Daniel couldn't meet her gaze. His face was pale, stricken, caught somewhere between disbelief and horror. "Isabelle," he whispered, "what did you do?" "I did it for you," she shouted, her voice rising, sharp and desperate. "Everything I did was for us. She was losing her mind, Daniel. I was trying to protect her." Her words broke apart in the air like glass. The officers moved closer. One of them took her arm gently but firmly. "Please don't make this harder than it has to be." Isabelle twisted free, her eyes wild now. "No, you don't understand." She lunged toward me, her voice shrill. "You ruined everything." Before she could reach me, one officer caught her and pulled her back. Isabelle screamed, struggling, her voice echoing down the hallway as they led her outside. The door closed. Silence followed. Deep, trembling silence. For a long moment, none of us moved. The only sound was the steady ticking of the clock on the wall. Daniel sank onto the couch, his head in his hands. "Mom, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know." I wanted to be angry, but the look on his face, broken, ashamed, left no room for anger, only grief. "I know," I said softly. "She fooled everyone." Emily crouched beside me. "You're safe now," she said gently. "But there will be a process. Statements, paperwork. I'll stay with you through all of it. Safe." The word felt strange on my tongue, like a language I hadn't spoken in years. Later that night, after the police had gone and Daniel had fallen asleep on the couch, I stood alone in the living room. The air smelled faintly of rain and disinfectant, clean, new, uncertain. The house felt different, still haunted by what had happened, but lighter somehow. The weight that had pressed on my chest for months was lifting, if only a little. I ran my fingers across the framed photos on the mantel. Daniel as a boy, his father's gentle smile, a younger version of myself in my nurse's uniform. So much life had been lived within these walls. For a moment, I let myself cry, not out of sadness, but relief. Emily came over and placed a hand on my arm. "You did the right thing," she said softly. "And you were stronger than most people would ever be." I nodded. I almost gave up. "But you didn't," she replied. "And that's what saved you?" Her words settled into the quiet like a promise. When she finally left, I sat by the window again, watching the dawn push the night away. Pale light crept over the city, soft and forgiving. Isabelle's reign of terror was over, but I knew the scars she'd left would take time to fade. Not the kind that showed on skin, but the kind that changed the way you trusted the world. Still, as the first sunlight touched my hands, I whispered to myself, "I'm free." For the first time in years, the word felt real, but even freedom has shadows. A week later, as I began rebuilding my life, a letter arrived in the mail. Written in handwriting I recognized all too well. Isabelle wasn't done with me yet. A week passed before the quiet finally began to feel real. The apartment, once filled with tension and fear, had fallen into a peace so deep it almost frightened me. I could walk through the rooms without flinching at every sound. The air no longer carried Isabelle's perfume, that sickly sweet reminder of control. But peace, I learned, doesn't arrive clean. It drifts in slowly, carrying the ghosts of everything that came before. Daniel had been coming by every day since the arrest. He cooked for me, repaired the broken latch on the balcony door, and rarely met my eyes for long. Guilt had made his voice softer, almost hesitant. I should have believed you, he said one evening, setting down a bowl of soup. You believed the woman you loved, I replied gently. That's not a crime. It's what love does. It blinds us to what we don't want to see. He looked up, eyes glistening. You still forgive me? I never stopped, I said. You were her victim too. That night, after he left, I sat alone in the living room, the same spot where Isabelle had once spun her lies so easily. The silence was almost comforting now. For the first time in months, I wasn't afraid of it. But peace can be fragile. It only takes one sound to break it. The mail slot rattled. Softly, I frowned. It was late. Too late for deliveries. I crossed the room, heart tightening, and picked up a single envelope lying on the floor. My name was written across it in delicate, looping handwriting. Isabelle's handwriting. My throat went dry. I carried the letter to the table, my hands trembling as I unfolded it. Clara, I hope you're satisfied. You destroyed everything I built, my home, my marriage, my life. But don't fool yourself into thinking you've won. People like you always need someone to blame. And now that I'm gone, that guilt will eat you alive. Daniel will never forgive himself. You'll watch him fade, and when he does, you'll remember this. You turned him against his wife. You taught him how to doubt love. Maybe prison will change me, maybe it won't. But I'll never forget you, and neither will he. Isabelle. I stared at the page, my heart pounding in my ears. Her words were poison, carefully chosen to reopen every wound she'd left behind. For a long moment, I couldn't move. Then slowly, I folded the letter and set it down. The fear she wanted to reignite, the shadow she hoped to cast, wasn't welcome here anymore. I walked to the fireplace, opened the small metal grate, and dropped the letter inside. The flames caught instantly, curling the paper into ash. I watched it burn until nothing was left but smoke. Isabelle no longer had power over me. The next morning, Emily came by to check on me. When I told her about the letter, she nodded thoughtfully. She'll try to manipulate you even from behind bars, she said. It's what people like her do. They feed on fear. I'm done feeding her, I said firmly. Emily smiled. Good. Then it's time you started living again. She was right. I had spent too long surviving. Now it was time to start living. I began with small things. I reopened the curtains. I called my sister for the first time in months. I even went back to the little garden behind the building. Overgrown, forgotten, but still breathing. I knelt down, dug my hands into the soil, and felt the earth's quiet pulse beneath my palms. It was grounding, real, honest. In the days that followed, the apartment felt brighter, lighter. Daniel began to smile again, and sometimes when he thought I wasn't looking, I saw the relief in his eyes. We were both learning to heal, separately yet together. One evening, as the sun set over the city, I stood by the window and whispered a quiet goodbye to the woman I had been, the one who'd lived in fear. She had survived the worst and found her strength again. And as the last of the light faded, I realized something simple but powerful. Isabelle had taken my peace, my trust, my sense of safety, but she hadn't taken me. That belonged only to myself. Some stories end with justice. Mine ended with freedom, quiet, imperfect, and hard-won. But sometimes that's all the victory you need.